our program for the night. I go by the name of Mokgabo Maletswa. I am the ABASA Johannesburg chairperson, and I'll be your program director for tonight. I'd like to first to welcome you all to this Women's Circle, our very first Women's Circle at an ABASA National Convention. I'd like to acknowledge a few people in the room. I'd like to acknowledge our headline sponsor, Old Mutual, our ABASA past president, Gugu Nube, and all official branch chairpersons here. Just a few house rules. Old Mutual is running a competition. If you walked in, you should have signed a leaflet with your details to win 15,000 unit trusts. If you haven't already, one of the sub-pro representatives will be going around, or you can go to the back and go fill it in. We are going to be doing the draw at the end of the evening. Tebogo, did I get it right? Happy? Good. We are live. If you want to tell people, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The official hashtag is ABASA Women's Circle, XOM, which is Old Mutual. Please do tag, take pictures, and let's have a good evening. I'd like to welcome our facilitator, who's going to be facilitating our two panels, an Old Mutual panel and an ABASA panel. Her name is Ulutile Mokhashwa. I got it right. And yeah, please welcome her. But before we welcome her, I'd like to welcome the ABASA Western Cape chairperson. He goes by the name of Lazala Momo. Don't be surprised, he is a male. We do have male cadres in the organization to welcome us to his beautiful province. Thank you.
Yes, as Mokgabo said, Lazola is the name and Momo is the surname. Ladies, mine is really I'm gonna make it short because of time. Welcome, welcome, Namkelekile, those being the three major languages in the Western Cape. This morning as I was getting ready for the day, and then my wife was chatting, so what's going to be happening today? And so forth. And I said, okay, there's going to be the Business Indaba, the Career Expo, the AGM, and then there's the Women's Circle. And I said, what are you doing in the Women's Circle? Then I said, no. Actually, in fact, my first reaction was, oh, are you asking me that? Because I thought you'd want us to be here so that we learn and understand. But the main thing is really what President Linda said, that because I was thinking, Linda, I see we got the invite, because myself and some of the guys in my team were also given the access tickets for the whole convention. I said, for this event, why don't we just give the ladies a chance? I said, no, I want the guys to be here as well so they can learn and understand. And sometimes when we look at way back when we were, as we say, in the innocent stage, very young, there wasn't this thing of guy, girl. We could all play with each other and do things together. And having a 2-year-old currently and watching him playing with other kids, it's not this thing of gender being an issue. And I wonder what is it that we can't continue that all the way up and just have that innocence again. But I believe it's a matter of mindset. And the more we have these platforms and the more you guys begin to speak within, it's also going to change from outside. Before it overflows, it must be first full inside. So this is the platform for you guys to fill each other up, start overflowing, so that we can also understand the so-called myths that we are learning that are wrong. Also, we can also dispel the wrong things that we are learning by also being involved and listening. So welcome. Enjoy today and have fun. As I was saying to some of the ladies as we were getting some drinks, that no, let's enjoy the drinks, though we want you guys to talk as much as you can here. So you have the platform, enjoy it and welcome.
Thank you so much, Lazala, for that welcome message. The theme for this year's convention is Driving Leadership Excellence. And our facilitator for tonight is one woman who's definitely driving leadership excellence. Just a brief bio on her. She is the executive head of the business development within Old Mutual, Large Enterprise Division. She is also an advocate and ally for women empowerment in the corporate sector, and her work in women empowerment extends beyond the boardroom to an online talk show called Secrets to Success. This platform enables her to host mentorship to leadership sessions to get more women to occupy a seat at the table. And that's one thing that we need to do, occupy a seat at the table and be excellent at it. This platform also affords her the opportunity to interview captains of industry and trailblazers rising up in the corporate South Africa. Secrets to Success also earned Ms. Mogashoa an international recognition when she was appointed South African chairperson of the Old Mutual Network, Women's Network, the Old Mutual Women's Network. This group brings all the beautiful, talented women in business together, granting them a platform to make a real difference in the communities which we operate, empower themselves, and give a voice to the underrepresented. Ulutilwe is a social entrepreneur at heart and is also the former chairperson of the Old Mutual Provincial Management Board CSI Investment Subcommittee. In addition, yes, there's in addition, because again, driving leadership excellence. In addition, furthermore, she runs Owning It Too, a company which is committed to providing mentorship and career development to disadvantaged students that can provide an aid in the form of bursaries, scholarships, student loans for university studies. Amongst her other accomplishments, she has been presented and been featured on numerous television shows, namely Green Initiatives on SABC International, a youth program on SABC called Hi SA, and a youth talk show called Sisterhood on ETV. I used to watch Sisterhood, by the way. That's why my love for women also came from growing up. I now went to a girls' school, so I remember that interview. She is known amongst her peers as a pragmatic attitude strategic development. Can we give a warm welcome to our facilitator for tonight?
Good evening, everybody. I didn't hear you. Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're going to have an awesome collaborative conversation. It's not going to be a one-way dialogue. I'm excited, and I have the honor and privilege to be your facilitator for 2 panel discussions today. I'm not alone. I'm joined by our own mutual leadership team, as well as our strategic partner from ABASA. So without wasting any time, I was instructed by the panelists, like, don't read my bio, because I wanted to do it justice. But for interest of time, I'm going to keep it short. So first up, we've got Nazreen Kader, who is the Global Head of Tax from Old Mutual South Africa. Nazreen, if you can make your way to stage. And then next up, we've got Matilde. I was also, told not to say Matilda, so for everybody, it's Matilde, okay? Matilde Shuya, who's the Group Reporting Manager from Old Mutual Namibia. And then next up, we've got Tima Pokoso, who is a Finance Manager from Old Mutual Malawi. And then now we've got a dynamic lady that I absolutely love, who doesn't know that I stalk her on a daily basis. We've got Lorika Tobias, who is a Strategy Support Manager for Old Mutual South Africa. And then lastly, we've got Alicia Davis, who's a CEO for the ABASA in ABASA Academy. So as it was alluded to earlier on, our discussion today would be around the importance of driving leadership excellence during a crisis. To safeguard economic growth, crisis can stem across the pandemic, crisis can be a reputational crisis, so that's our theme for tonight. And to kickstart our conversation, I am going to hand over to Nazreen, who is going to just touch on our topic for today, but specifically around women in leadership.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and a few gentlemen that are in the audience. I was actually getting a little bit concerned when we started. It was too few of you, but thank you for being here. I think specifically, what we've learned through the crises is that they're not gender neutral. And there are always lessons. It's a perpetual learning curve. But the saddest thing is that our economic so inextricably linked to sustainability in the first instance, and then meeting the needs of stakeholders, a large proportion of which are women. And with this non-gender neutrality and the disproportionate impact that crises in general have on women, what's become the norm, and I was quite surprised, I was introduced to a noun recently, a new word to the English language, a she-session. Have you heard of it?
No.
Well,
Very interesting.
loosely translated, it is a recession that has a disproportionate negative impact on women. And the fact that we have these new words that are joining the English language means just how sustainably, negatively, crises have impacted women and by extension, children. And so I took the liberty to pull together some statistics, having just lived through a COVID crisis and a post-pandemic environment. Some of the things that have come to light that I particularly have had an interest in is that observers have noted that post-COVID lockdown, the advancement of women in general in the workforce has regressed 5 years to 2017. And this disproportionate burden that women carried during the pandemic of being the primary health care or the sort of the health supporter in their families has been the primary cause for women quietly quitting the work environment. And what was fascinating for me is that the International Labour Organization over a period of 3 years tracked the impact on women, and the outcome was that 4.2% of women's roles in the labor force has been completely obliterated. And the equivalent statistics for men was 3%, high enough, but again we see that the impact on women is that much higher. And lastly, besides sounding like I'm just quoting a whole lot of statistics, while the number of of men in employment is expected to go back to pre-pandemic levels in 2022, it is projected that the number of roles for women will be in the region of about 13 million fewer than in 2019. I'll leave it there, but thank you so much. I was shocked by that, and I'm sure you are too.
I am extremely shocked. Thank you, Nazreen, for those alarming statistics. I think, and I'm going to pose this question to everybody in the panel. As a leader, what approach do you take when navigating the business through times of crisis? I think Nazreen has touched and has shared some rather alarming statistics. So for anyone in the panel who wants to take this question.
Okay. Thank you, Oletire. I think commenting on from what Nazreen has shared, the statistics are scary. It's so easy to imagine that there's no hope for women, but I think there is hope for women. And as a woman leader, what I do is to align the short-term interest of the organization with the long-term interest. So as we are driving through a crisis, you've got a crisis to manage, but you also have the goals of the organization to meet. So as we drive through the crisis, it's important to ensure that the short-term goal is to manage that crisis, but we shouldn't lose sight of the goals of the organization in the long term. So I've been driving my teams towards ensuring that they're innovative during the crisis. The industry norms change so fast when there is a crisis, so you can't stick to the same things that you used to do in the past. You're as good as you are today, so whatever you can achieve is going to be dependent on how good you are as a leader today. So those are some of the things that I've been doing as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Tima. Lorika? Oh, Alicia. No,
Okay.
go for it.
Yes, so for me personally, I run the ABASA Academy, and so we are an educational institution. What I do is I start with myself first. So I need to look within, and as they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So in a crisis, I make myself aware about what is the crisis and how will this potentially impact me, our organization, our business, and my team. Without my team, there is no business. And so I first of all have to look at myself and build my internal resources. to know how to navigate the way for my team and lead through that crisis. I then identify the individuals within my team who would be the people I can rely on to assist me. So I often think about John C. Maxwell. A couple of years ago, I read his books on leadership and teamwork. You know, he says that one is too small a number to achieve significance. And so if you think you can achieve great things on your own, you are mistaken. You've got to tap into your team, and you've got to bring them along with you to help you navigate the way. And so that is really my approach that I take, is to first equip myself and make myself aware, and then bring on key people who will help me to navigate the way through the crisis.
Thanks, Alicia. And I think it's important to also realize, because I think as women, we wear many hats, right? You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a leader, you're basically everything, and sometimes we forget about ourselves. So this common theme around, you can't pour from an empty cup. As a woman navigating through this pandemic, it's very important to remember yourself. So yeah, is there anyone else who wants to add to that?
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to add to what they've highlighted. So for me, I think the most important thing is being agile, but being not to the detriment of the next person. So in terms of, obviously the crisis brings a lot of limitations, a lot of challenges that no one anticipates at all, but it helps to actually be, to allow some room for flexibility, having assessed how it affects the next person, be it your customers and be it yourself, and then making sure that whatever you implement, obviously, like she said, with the assistance of the other people, because you can't do it on your own. As a leader, contrary to what we normally think we got it, we can handle it, and we normally look down on people that are either below us, for lack of better word, and we just don't pull them in and get them involved. So I think it's also important in such uncertain times to pull in the people at any levels of authority, to just get them in, get their input, and then build a much more, structure or strategy around how then do you respond to what you're faced with. So I think that's something that's also very, very important.
Thank you. Lorika, I'm going to ask you this question. So what are your thoughts around some of the initiatives that we as Old Mutual have in place in terms of aiding in economic recovery?
So from an Old Mutual perspective, we have a sustainability framework that we really bedded down in 2021. And our sustainability framework really addresses the environmental, social, and governance issues. And I'm going to focus specifically on our responsibility towards communities, and two areas in that. One is financial education, and secondly, entrepreneurship. In terms of financial education, what we are really trying to do is increase financial literacy amongst the communities where we operate. This is urban, rural communities, and we're really trying to aid to let more people really go into the economic mainstream so that they can create wealth, maintain wealth, and sustain their wealth. And this ultimately also benefits Old Mutual, but it's creating that shared value where we give back to our communities. And like John Manike would say, that who leads this program, is like, you don't want your money to blue tick you. So, so it's about increasing that, and it's about breaking down complicated financial concepts, budgeting, buying a house, simple things, but that can really add to you creating your wealth. And that really aids our economy. The second thing, and by the way, in 2021, we reached about 22 million people with our financial education programs. That's across the countries where we operate. So it's not just about South Africa. It's about us as Africans really coming to the party and focusing on the youth and our females. And the second part is entrepreneurship, and this is just amazing work that we are doing at the moment. I'm going to focus on two specific. One institution is Masisizani. Masisizani provides funding to small, medium, and micro-sized enterprises, and focusing specifically on women-owned businesses and young individuals. And what Masisizani does, it's not just about providing funding, loan funding or grant funding, but it's extending it and providing that post-investment support, providing other non-financial services. Because with small businesses, it's not just about giving them money, but also about creating the skill and developing the skill to run your business and to really making it a success so that you can upscale. Secondly, though, what I want to talk about is is a digital platform that we have, and it's called SME Go, and this is really exciting. This is going to really make it easier for businesses to obtain funding, and it's different types of funding. So what we've done is we've partnered with a number of funders who are on this platform, and all small businesses can go on this platform. And it's basically like you match up with who, you're finding your perfect match in terms of funding, if there is something like that. And it shortens the turnaround time, and it also eases the administration burden. And with this, we are really empowering our smaller businesses, increasing job creation, and bringing the power back to female-owned businesses as well at the same time. So I think that is really that's amongst a number of different things that Old Mutual is doing. So please go read our sustainability report that was published in March already. We are already doing a number of other great things. So this is just, these good things to be done, and Old Mutual has been showing up throughout this pandemic and afterwards. So yeah.
I just want to say I'm very proud to be a mutualite right now. I don't know about you. Usually I wear green. Guys, my heart, my blood is green. Okay, I know I'm wearing pink, but my blood is really, really green. And I think you've shared a lot of insights around don't let your money blue take you. That is very powerful. And I think when I think of financial literacy, both my parents were teachers, and I think there's so much power in educating people around financial literacy. I grew up seeing my mother tearing up credit cards. So I had a negative connotation towards finances. So I think with what we are doing as Old Mutual in terms of educating the communities in which we live in just brings me to the powerful quote by Warren Buffett that I absolutely love and live by, that says someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And I think, as Old Mutual, that's what we try to do on a daily basis. So without making it an Old Mutual thing, I'm going to now hand over to Alicia to also answer from, the CISA Academy around, that particular question that I posed.
Yes, so the ABASA Academy, the reason we exist is really for the industry and to bring about transformation or to drive transformation in the industry. So not only do we provide programs and courses for employees of ABASA members, of whom Old Mutual is one, but we also provide opportunities for young people. And I'm very excited to say that a particular flagship program we've been running since 2016, the Independent Financial Advisor Internship, has seen over 200 young black graduates come through the program, and about 70% are black females. So this program is particularly for black South African young people coming from university, generally with a BCom financial planning degree, and it gets them to spend a year interning in an independent financial advisory practice. And so that is one initiative where we partner with industry. So this program is sponsored by industry. The Academy then delivers the program and facilitates and oversees it. But the fantastic thing is the impact that we are seeing. We are seeing more than 90% of these young people completing the program every year, and 80 to 85% of them being employed by the very practices where they have interned. A couple of years down the line, we did a little bit of an impact survey, and we found that 50% of them were still working at the advisory practices, and the rest of them have been snapped up by investment banks and by the industry at large, the corporates and so forth. So for me, that's a very positive, it's a story that is positive about what our industry is doing. They're joining together, they're joining hands and partnering with the Academy, and we're making an impact to bring about transformation, not only for black South Africans in the financial advisory space, but black females. So I'm looking forward to a couple of years down the line, seeing black South African women starting their own wealth management businesses.
And I think it's about time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Alicia. I'm going to head over to Matilde. Can you highlight some of the negative impacts that the pandemic has had on women empowerment?
Well, it's actually no secret that women have actually been quite adversely affected by COVID-19. Why? Because one, most of the roles that were well, COVID had an overall impact on everyone, but I mean, most of the roles that were that suffered the most were roles where they're women dominant. For example, the hospitality industry. You know, basically the hospitality industry being the main one, and then also just like the health sector. Those are the sectors that are basically female dominated, and they suffered a lot. And amidst the COVID pandemic, it required so much, it took so much in terms of emotional, in terms of financial, it took so much, but because women bear the burden of, say, taking responsibility for the sick, you know, taking care of children, they bear the greater burden of it, and COVID just multiplied that. It means they actually had they were hit a lot harder than men. And for them to actually, for us as women to actually bounce back, it's like taking, we had just, I mean, pre-COVID, we've just taken, we were way ahead. We were progressing quite well in terms of gender equality and that. But then the COVID pandemic literally pushed us 5 years back. You know, it pushed us a lot back. And having to re-establish that is a process for us. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it is attainable. And I think it is important that we actually identify what COVID has done, and we can learn from it and actually just develop better, because we are women, we are powerful, we are in a position to conquer whatever we're faced with. So I believe that amidst all the adverse impact that we've suffered of COVID, it does not take away what we are as women, what our strengths are, and how we can actually bounce back regardless. And I think this is why we need such platforms that create that remind us of who we are and what we are capable of, and the support that we actually have at our disposal to ensure that we continuously strive regardless of what we're faced with. Yeah.
Thank you, Matilde. And I think as we're having this conversation, guys, please jot down some questions, because I have like a few questions, and then I'm going to hand over to the audience. So it's going to be your chance to sort of ask our panelists some probing questions as we are discussing our topic at hand. I think, Nazreen, I'm going to throw this to you now in terms of, you also wear a lot of hats at Old Mutual. There's a lot of programs that we have. Can you shed some lights around what programs we currently have in place to help elevate women and diversity within Old Mutual?
That's I could speak forever, so I'm going to narrow it down, because we are at an ABASA event. I want to narrow it down to chartered accountants in particular. I think, I couldn't help myself, but I caught my breath. Futhi Mtoba just walked in, and, she's my role model, my inspiration, my former partner. There's been so many firsts for Futhi. I sit here quite humbled. So you talk about what Old Mutual's been doing. I find that I have to comment briefly on the mandate of ABASA, being the voice of the voiceless. That's right. And way back in the early 2000s, Futhi was the first female president of ABASA. And I just want to punt myself here. I was involved with the ABASA Convention Committee in those days in Durban. And so I held my breath at that convention when she actually was appointed. And from the early 2000s to where we sit today, I think the chartered accountants in particular, if you look at Old Mutual, I think it's known, or its brand is quite closely associated with actuaries. And the one thing that occurred to me when I arrived at Old Mutual very recently was that there are over 250 chartered accountants at Old Mutual. And the demographics of that population, I was shocked pleasantly that it is so beautifully inclined towards African black, and then female in particular. But to increase those numbers, because we're an organization of 30,000 employees, the idea was to create a community of chartered accountants at Old Mutual. And so we launched something called Old Mutual Chartered Accountants Calibre, CALIBRE. But the focus was on LIBRE.
Old Mutual and acronyms.
Yes. The Libre, meaning to be liberated. And why international? Because we are not just South African. We're African. We attract the diversity that you talk about. We attract chartered accountants across the globe, never mind just South Africa and Africa. But cut a long story short, Calibre is specifically set up to create a home for chartered accountants at Old Mutual. It is to create a sense of belonging. We realize the impact that we can have as a financial services conglomerate operating across the sectors in financial services. So our role to play as a home for chartered accountants in the financial services sector, specifically across the spectrum of financial services that we offer, we take extremely seriously. I'm not going to go into any further. I've said enough. I couldn't help but comment on Footy as she walked in. But thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Nesri.
A walking, talking role model, you know.
I also have someone that I've been stalking, and it's Tandazwa from Bala World. And I think I saw her there. She's rolling her eyes, but it's okay. But I mean, I think, you know, we share the same sentiment.
Yes.
Whenever I see Tandazwa, I'm like, oh
Take a
my
breath.
God. Yeah, I take a breath because I think she stands for being the epitome of excellence.
I have to agree.
Just to get Tima, before I hand over to the audience and open the floor for questions, Tima, I just wanted to know what, in your opinion, are qualities that make a leader truly great?
Okay, so a leader is going to deliver through people. So a leader needs to nurture the people that he or she is working with. There's been a lot of talk about women not rising up to the position that have been called to. But I think women, we can do better. Women, we can do great things. I saw a certain quote that when a man thinks he can do 50% of the job, they'll go for it. A woman, they want to be so comfortable that they can do it. So we also take the same approach when we go to lead people. You want to be comfortable that you can lead people, but that's not how it is. When you're 50% sure that you can lead people, you're going to lead them. And you need to nurture the people that you have. Because if you're going to achieve anything great, it will be dependent on how you nurture your people. So as a leader, you shouldn't drive people into fear. Because when people are afraid, they'll not deliver. When people are afraid, they'll not achieve so much in the organization. But if you allow people to be innovative, if you allow people to rise up to what they can be, then a leader is going to achieve so many things. So I think at the bottom of it is for the leader to realize that you can deliver. You can only deliver through people. You will not deliver much on your own. There is very little that you can achieve if you're working on your own. So a leader needs to realize that you need to have and nurture the people that you have for you to achieve great things. The world is also changing. A leader needs to keep up with the changing standards that you're operating in. So as a leader, you need to have those kind of qualities. It doesn't take a lot, but if you put in your best, you're going to become a great leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Tima. That's so powerful. And I think it stems back to the imposter syndrome that sometimes, you know, we as women sort of encounter. And I think when I think about what I stand for and what I push, often people think you're on the stage and you're brave, but you do it scared, right? You come through, you're prepared, you do it scared, because I think there is room for all of us at the table. And we really need to truly lift as we rise. So now I'm going to open up the floor for anyone who has questions. So does anyone have a roaming mic? And we can take some questions for our panelists. Makoba, is there a roaming mic?
There's no questions, they should just scream.
Are there any questions? Come on, guys, this is your last chance.
There's one.
Okay, 2 questions, right?
Just scream. Stand
Okay,
up.
maybe if you can stand up and maybe just, yeah.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Lumile. I think All right, hi everyone. My name is Lungile. So I just have just a quick question, right? And I'd actually really appreciate your input on that. So you mentioned that COVID negatively impacted everyone. But unfortunately, women were at the worst end of it all. Because you were, mentioning the statistics and everything. And, I realized that like with men, because I've also just actually studied, you know, some of the impacts and so forth. And I realized that, you know, for the other sex, they're actually just more resilient. You see, because I feel that COVID impacted everybody equally. But because men, you know, being strong and everything, you know, they managed to actually bounce back, you know, which, well, unfortunately, women, because of emotions and things like that, you know, they weren't able to recover as quickly as men. So just what I want to know from you is, okay, you also mentioned that women wear a lot of hats and so forth, you know, which is also great leadership qualities. I mean, as a wife, a caregiver, you know, taking care of your family, taking care of the community and so forth. So how would you, you know, like sitting where you currently are, actually just, you know, bring into perspective, you know, women's leadership qualities, like, you know, you actually can be more resilient because you are more capable, probably more capable than the other sex and so forth. You know, because I'm sure you guys, you know, survived COVID. You probably had plans that the other women who suffered didn't. You see, so yeah, I just want to know, like, you know, what type of input would you actually like to give women to actually make them realize that you're more capable of anything. You know, we're actually going through the AGM, and I was looking at the financial results, and that's when I realized that, you know, under the women leadership, you know, ABASA did actually extremely well. You know, in terms of the variances and everything. So yes, I was actually impressed with that, and I did actually see the capabilities of women. You know, I've also just studied, you know, countries that are actually ran by women, that they're actually performing much better, you know, in terms of a lot of things that actually, you know, benefit the population as a whole. So yeah. Just what type of advice would you give women to be just more resilient, you know, towards these negative circumstances?
I'm going to improvise. Thank you very much for that loaded question. Is there anyone on the panel who wants to take that? Lorika?
I think I wanted to address that because a leader, I just wanted to say being a leader is not limited to a position. It's not limited to a role size. It's not limited to an organization. A leader is based on who you are, your values, and you can lead from the front or from the back. You have to take ownership of your life, and that takes a bit of looking inside, where I am, where I want to be, and how do I get there? And you take it piece by piece. And that is really what I wish I knew earlier on in my career, that really how you lead is your values, being aware of the situation, how you treat other people, leading with integrity, having perseverance, and always being willing to serve. Any position where you get in, you will be in a position of service. The higher you go up, the more you're going to serve. So persevere, take it piece by piece. You don't have to solve every problem on day one. And you can lead from wherever you are in your life at the moment. So that is how I would say, just tackle it like that. And that's how you really strive and you grow in your own career. And your path is not the same as anyone else's. You have to always remember that. So if anything you can take, that's my piece of advice. And also how I got through the pandemic. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lorika. Alicia, see you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's such a great question because I think, you know, one place we can encourage each other as women to start is to believe in yourself, to tell yourself, I am capable. And I want to share a little story. A couple of months ago, I was having my nails done by a local entrepreneur in my community. And as she was doing my nails, she was telling me a story of COVID. And she said, you know, before lockdown, I was saving to take my family on a cruise. And I do nails from home, or this is what she used to do. She used to do nails from home. And her husband was in tourism. And when lockdown hit, you know what happened to tourism. And, you know, with him running his own business as a tour guide, it was zero income. And for her, the same. And she said, my savings saw us through the pandemic. And I just encouraged her. I just said to her, kudos to you. This is so amazing. Because coming from, the ABASA, Association for Savings and Investments, I could look at this woman and say, wow, what an example. Even myself, we've been through something as a family, and I've had to reach into my savings, and I can say, for women, very often, we've got so many women who are the breadwinners. I lead a team of women, and I encourage them, do you have a tax-free savings account? Don't tell people what you earn. Don't tell your family. Make sure you do the right thing behind the scenes, right? So we start with believing in ourselves and telling ourselves, I am fully capable. And then we equip ourselves. And we as women, we naturally tend to share with each other, don't we? So sharing and equipping one another with our own stories and our own tools and tricks and tips, I think that is how we build one another up.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I think that's so powerful, and I think the pandemic hit all of us, but I would be very naive in saying it hit us equally. I think a lot of us were cushioned, even though we were touched in a different way. But I think, there's nothing more to add to what Alicia said. I think it's self-belief and having those emergency funds and having those boundaries around your family, in terms of, giving back, etc. I think, do we have one more question before we get the closing remarks? Oh, two. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Oluwethu Ndlovu, and I wanted to ask if maneuvering through the season, the recession affecting women, do you have any advice for student female leadership? Thank you.
Beautiful question. Nazreen, I think you can take that one.
Thank you. I'm so impressed. You say student leadership. Look at yourself. I'm sitting here in awe in any event. I think it's the confidence factor. If you believe you can, you can. I'll just say that much. I'm really sitting here thinking, you're so articulate, you're so accomplished, and you're asking for advice. I don't think you need it. You got it.
Thank you, Nazreen. Anyone else who wants to touch on that?
I'm going to say to student female leaders, be audacious.
Yeah.
I interact with a lot of students. They apply to us for internships, and it's that audacious young person who will actually say, I had a young person who said to me, Alicia, I applied for this internship. I wasn't even selected for an interview. I want to do this. I want to get into investments. And I said, look at this young person, quite audacious. Let's give this person a chance. And we opened the door. So, you be audacious. Don't be afraid. You're not forward. You put yourself out there and you say, I'm here. I have whatever I have to offer. And people will look up and say, okay, let's give you a chance.
I love that, Alicia. And I think in terms of being audacious, back yourself. I think a lot of us as females don't do that a lot. We don't back ourselves. I saw Tima had her hand.
To add to what Alicia said, I think you need to believe that there is hope. If you don't believe that there is hope for a woman, you're going to give up. But you need to believe that there is hope. I think in the world that we are competing, it's not about being a woman or a man. You're competing for similar jobs. So believe that there is hope for you, believe that there is hope for a woman, and you're going to get it. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. The lady with that beautiful dress in the front.
Oh, wow. That's so kind. Thank you. Good evening, ladies. Thank you for such an enriching conversation about wealth creation. It's one of my passions, especially with the financial education from a young age. Teaching our children from a young age about money and not to be afraid to speak about finances in the family. So thank you so much. My name is Nonkulela Gomnisi, and I'm the Treasurer General of the Johannesburg branch. And I've got just two questions. Lorika. Apologies. You spoke about the Masizane fund, right? And there is a statement that if you want to go far, right, go together. And if you want to go fast, you go alone. So with business, there's an element of trust that comes to play. But how has a collaboration between the women or the entrepreneurs that you work with, how has that played out within that space where we collaborate with businesses and really take a bigger stake in making impact in the different points of the value chain within an industry? Just want to get your insights there. And then the second point is on the SME Go. That's an exciting platform. I'm not sure, is it more of a crowdfunding concept? Would you just unpack on it? Because my thinking is just on the opportunities there, especially for women who are in stokvels. We are usually very risk averse and want to keep our money safe. So in playing in a more crowdfunding platform, how would your approach be to teach them about the opportunities in funding businesses instead of just taking the money to the stock market or leaving the bank and getting interest? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of a question there, Masi Sizani, so really it refers to post-investment support. So, example, we provide loan funding. It's not just about getting our interest back or the premium payments back, the payments back, capital payments back. It's about actually looking at how the business is doing. And we have interventions when the businesses are not doing so well. So that is part of the non-financial support that we provide. It's really to assess and see, okay, on a monthly basis, having regular check-ins to say, how are you doing? What is the finances looking like? Where do you actually need more support? What skills do you need? So it's walking that journey with the SMME, because the idea is to scale so that we can really grow and create more jobs. Since the inception of Masasazani, they've created over 11,000 jobs. 11 million jobs, sorry. Which is amazing. So that is really what we do, and we continuously engage with the SMME, because it's not just about providing the funding, it's about making an impact. And on the SME Go platform, I might have to go to Nobasutu on that one, but it's really a platform where SMMEs can come, and really if they need loan funding or any capital for their businesses, there would be a funder on there. But in terms of investments for your stokvels, that you might have to go to our investment business to see and have an advisor. And if you can, we can link up afterwards, and we can really talk about how we arrange a session where you get more information on that. And whether it's a financial education session with John Manike, it's free. We can come and present. That's what we do, and that's a shared value that we create at Old Mutual. It's not about just making money, but also giving back to the communities. So I don't know, I haven't answered all of your questions, but we can definitely meet up and, we can give you that advice.
Thank you very much. So you just made it for the last question before I ask for closing remarks. Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Boniswa Madigizela, and I'm from UJ. The question that I have for the panelists is around, I know we're speaking about leadership, so I would like to know from each and every one of you with regards to, have you identified your successor in your role? And what have or are you actively doing to ensure that seat on the table, because it starts with the role that you are occupying now? Thank you.
You're speaking my language. When you talk about a seat at the table, I almost want to I'll give it a go. So I've just been newly appointed as the head of business development within Old Mutual Corporate and Large Enterprise. Kaya. Kaya knows me from my former, we won't mention where, but my blood is green now, hey? It's been for 3 years, but thank you for that. And I think through my platform, I try and have those leadership to mentorship discussions to bridge the gap between middle management to senior to executive to, from graduates, middle management, all the way occupying a seat at the table. And in some of the mentors that I've sort of had the privilege, I've had the CEO of Microsoft South Africa, I've had the CIO of Bitvest, I've had so many people that are in my corner and in my tribe. And I've tried to give access to everybody through that platform to say, come and engage with this person, because a lot of people don't have time to mentor. I've also tried to highlight the importance of having a sponsor, because I think a lot of women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. And I think one needs to know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So a sponsor is someone who would advocate, use their relationship currency for you in order to lift you, So I think right now it's still early days, but what I've done in my team is I've identified potential female leaders. So one is a female, one is a male leader. And I'm appointing another person. If I have it my way, it will be another female of color, because I'm very deliberate around our transformation efforts. And I think the reason why I love Old Mutual so much is that transformation is really not a tick box exercise. I think Ediwe from our Director of Human Capital is very deliberate about, about empowering women, especially women of color, to take a seat at the table. So it encourages me to know that I'm in an organization that is in alignment with my values. I hope that answers your question. I'll now give it to anyone else on the panel.
Okay. There is a lot of leadership crisis happening around the world. I don't know about SA, because I think I'm coming from Malawi, but there's a lot of leadership crisis happening around the world. I think the recent one was the resignation of Liz Truss in UK. So as a woman, you need to have a plan to say, you're not the best. You need to believe that others are also the best, and they can do even a greater job. Because if you believe that you're the only best thing, then there's going to be a crisis when you leave.
Absolutely.
Excellency in a leader is going to be determined by what is going to happen when you leave. So when you leave an organization or a position and then everything tumbles, it means you failed as a leader. As a leader, you need to drive. You need to, when you're a leader, you can start excellency programs. But the success of that is going to be dependent on what happens when you leave. So as a leader, you need to make sure that whenever you've left, there's a legacy that you've left behind. Everything should continue even to greater heights when you've left. So you need to have deliberate programs as a leader to ensure that, because people will say, okay, Tima failed to build up others to take up the position that she had. So you need to ensure that when you're leaving, they're able people that can do the job. If I can do my job good enough, I can also train others to do it even better. So as a leader, you need to have that at your heart to say your success is going to be decided by what is going to happen when you leave. So you need to have deliberate programs to ensure that you're mentoring other people to take up your position. If I leave today, there shouldn't be a crisis in the organization. Everything should continue as smoothly as it was happening when you're in that position. So that is going to be one of the things that is going to define you as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tima. So without wasting any more time, we won't have time for closing remarks, but I think on that note, there's no need for closing remarks. So if we can just give a round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uligilwe. Before we go into our second panel discussion, I'd like to recognize a few people in the room. Our ABASA President, Linda Maqoma, is in the room. I'd also like to recognize ABASA Past President, Mamfutu Mtoba, ABASA Past President, Tanda Safubu, our current VP, Luyanda Gidini, and ABASA Stalwart, Kaya Sutole. I'd also like to recognize our MOU partners and Business Forum members, MASA auditors. Emma from MASA auditors is here. Saipa chairwoman, Gantanaita, was also here. Our international friends and partners from NABA are here. I see Jessa Rhodes over there. As you know, we did do a few house rules earlier on, and I do recognize that some people came late. I had asked everybody just to move a little bit closer. If you are in the back, if you can please kindly move closer. Can the next panel go get mic'd at the back as well? Who do? Oh, yes. And our ABASA kids are also here. Hi, Mandy. And then, as you guys know, we are running a competition for those 15,000 units trust from Old Mutual. If you do not fill in that pamphlet, it is outside by the tables. Do fill it in. We are running the competition. There is going to be a draw at the end of the panel discussion. I'd like to call Vusu Zinkitwa for the sponsorship address. He is the he is the provincial management board chairperson of Old Mutual Cape Town. Can we please welcome Vusi?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? So my job has been made easy because I was supposed to do the opening address as the sponsor, and I think the panelists here have actually raised a lot of stuff that I wanted to raise in terms of what we as Old Mutual do. It's actually a great privilege to be here. It's actually a blessing for me to be sitting and listening. This is just a rare occasion. When I was asked to come and represent Old Mutual, I said, no, I know one person that actually is doing excellently at Old Mutual. It's an African female who's a CA who actually came through the top program training. Outside public practice is what we've started more than 10 years ago at Old Mutual, and everyone started at the internal auditing function where I was a senior leader at that stage. So I wanted her to be here because I think she looks better than I do and she's brighter than I am and so forth. So for me, it's more of a blessing to be here. And it was quite fascinating listening to you guys. So I'm not going to be talking about Old Mutual. We've spoken about Old Mutual in the Old Mutual context, and what we do and what we stand for quite a lot, so I'm not going to talk about it. But there's one thing I wanted to say. I grew up amongst women. In my family, there were only female. There were no father figures. So I've got the greatest respect for women. I've learned from them how to nurture others. So the irony is that the person that was quite instrumental in my development was a woman. And it's someone that I will eternally be grateful for. So my background is I'm actually in your field. I'm an auditor by profession. I'm a farm laborer's child, if you talk about South Africa. I'm a farm laborer's child, poorest of the poor in the Western Cape. I've started at Old Mutual as a trainee auditor. And it took me a number of years, 20-year career, where I was at the senior level, at the board level in this very brilliant company. How? It's through excellent leadership. It's through people identifying potential and not just talking. It's by doing. We started in 1999, appointing aggressively, making sure that from an employment equity point of view, we do not just run behind numbers. So I sat here and I thought, what is my contribution here? And my contribution is to really say, I'm grateful to the women that have been part of my life. And I would like you and the lady that asked, you must believe in yourself. That's the brilliant point. It's not about men or whatever. You must believe in yourself. And when you walk into a room, you must be really visible because the confidence actually speaks for itself. So I wanted to actually say I salute the women that have been really instrumental in our development as males. And I'm talking from my perspective because I've got someone, I won't mention a name, a number of people, but one person that has always been part of my development in the Old Mutual business. My role then as a leader, and I look after the Western Cape and Eastern Cape in terms of financial advisors, people that actually really go out and make sure that we add value to others. We help our communities, our customers to get their financial affairs in order, to achieve their aspirations. It is actually a serious matter. We take it serious because that's what we do. I was quite humbled by just the positioning. So let me close by actually also saying and answering a question that was asked around what role do we play to create a successor? So in the team I lead, when I started, it was not as diverse as I would have wished it to be. What we've done, as per the Old Mutual standard, is that you're quite intentional about what your aim is, and you set structures in place. You identify people with high potential, and you put the development plan. It's just the basics. You put the plan in place to develop them, and you follow through. So in my group, I've got a diverse group of leaders reporting to me, 6, 7, 8 of them, diverse group. Reporting to them is close to 40 managers, a diverse group. So we all have that role. So we've been entrusted as leaders to be able to obviously play the role that we are playing and make sure that we change the South African landscape to really be reflective of exactly who we are. So just thank you for the opportunity. Let me not clog the mic because I can talk a lot. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for what you are doing as ABASA. It is really a super privilege to be amongst my own. I'm an auditing profession, as I've said, and I've changed careers 5 years ago to be actually a sales leader that looks after people who provides financial advice. And what is possible for someone like me is possible for everyone else. And so, yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the evening. I will be taking notes. There's a lot to take notes on. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Vusi. Thank you, Old Mutual and team, for all your hard work. I would like to now introduce the next panel discussion, which is the ABASA panel. It is a Women of ABASA fireside chat on the role of women leaders in raising a generation of excellence for future sustainability. It is going to be facilitated by Ulitile again. Please don't leave. We do have food and drinks after this panel. After we close up and do the vote of thanks and announce the competition winner, there will be a networking session with food and drinks at the end of the session. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's me again. So it feels a bit odd coming on and off the stage, but this particular panel really excites me. As Nazreen alluded to earlier on, there's a lot of women that I have been looking up to and stalking and following without them even knowing. So if I can ask them, I'm just going to call them up, and then if they can come to the stage and we can start. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate around. I didn't dress for this roaming mic, this particular mic. First up, I'm going to ask Gugu Ncube. Gugu Ncube is the past president of ABASA. She's currently the head of operational excellence at Barloworld Ingrain. If we can give Gugu a hand of applause. And then next up, we've got Sangeeta. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Sangeeta Cullen, who is the business unit leader at the Auditor General South Africa. And then next up, we've got Portia Makabela, who's the market head for Accountants Association of Chartered Accountants South Africa, Botswana, and remotely managed markets. And then next up, we've got Nompendulo Makatswa. Oh, Nompendul is not here. Okay, Sarah Lekhodi, who is the Chief of People and Culture Officer at SAPRO. Do you mind opening your phone? No, open up your phone. I need that topic. Your phone. I need the topic, sorry. Okay, so ladies, I think I feel so far removed, so I'm going to actually sit here so that it's nice and cozy. For some of us who don't know you, I think if you can just, I thought if I read the bio, I'm going to take forever. Someone thought my bio was long, but yeah, these are industry giants. So if you can just give a short, high-level intro of who you are and what you do in your profession.
Okay. Is this on? Yes. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Portia. Ke ngwanyana wa ko Limpopo. I don't know where Masa is because we always talk about Limpopo. Born and bred in Malamulele, I am Tsonga. I am a product of Telkom South Africa.
Oh, nice.
I've headed Center for Learning with my late mentor, Nkgeteleng Vokwana. So I am now the head of ACCA. And let me also declare that I'm not a chartered accountant, nor an auditor, but I'm a skills development specialist.
Lovely.
And I guess the organization made a decision to say we don't want auditors to manage the professional body, but we want people who understand training and development. So, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. My name is Sarah. I'm a mother of 2 boys, first of all. Secondly, I'm a qualified industrial psychologist registered with the Health Profession Council of South Africa and an executive coach. And thirdly, I'm a Global Chief People and Culture Officer for SAPRO. And the reason why I started off by saying I'm a mother is important to me and is important to the women in this room to acknowledge that as we are working mothers, we have got many roles that we wear. And previously it has been stated that that is the case. And we can do anything and everything, believe in ourselves. And that's just one thing that really resonates with me. And I have more than 20 years relevant experience.
Wow.
In the corporate and consulting environment. I started my career in Old Mutual many years ago. And so when I saw this and I said, oh my goodness, everything
You're coming home.
in 1 second. But where my role has spanned across policy and strategy formulation through leading the people agenda with compassion, care, and empathy at an executive level where decision-making are made.
Wow.
And that is just one thing that I'm really passionate about. And when I heard the question around who is your successor, and I said, what a great question, because absolutely, and the answer of saying, wherever you go, you need to make sure that when you leave, you have got people that are stepping in your role.
Yes.
And it is something that I'm really passionate, and I make sure that wherever I go, there are people that are stepping into my role, and there are people that are actually occupying leadership position. But that's something that I'm really passionate about, leading with compassion, with care and empathy. That is just one thing that is part of me. And when COVID hit, it was just an extension of who I am, but it's something that I'm really proud of. And yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Beautiful.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sangeeta. I come from Mpumalanga. I left a small little town called Standerton, and I'm sure everyone's heard about Lekwa municipality, one of the worst municipalities in the country. My poor dad goes through that every day still, bad roads, bad water, and it really shows you why I am at the Auditor General. My life has always been about wanting to make a difference for the others, questioning the status quo. I hail from a very traditional Indian family. Once I hit matric, it was quite clear, find her husband and get her married. She'll make good babies. That was not part of my plan. I really wanted a career. So as the tradition goes, you would fight back. I saw lots of intergenerational conversations happening with my cousins in the family, with my parents and my aunts and my uncles, and I really did try to push the boundaries. I'm the first female in my family to have matriculated, first female in my family to have gone to university, and the first female in the family which I think I've chosen my own husband. So if I could maybe just add the bit about my career, right? But it also shows the passion that one has to want to make a difference in the lives of everyone. The Auditor General is one of the organizations where you feel this burning desire to be able to make the life of your community better, to be able to go back to your schools and inspire those kids because you know where you came from. You know what your parents go through, you know what happens in the townships, you know what happens in the rural areas, and you do want to make a difference. And I think it's definitely a calling for me. I used to be part of the national office in Pretoria, and I recently uprooted my entire family and moved to the Western Cape so that I could experience how people are in fact living on the ground from a municipal space. So I'm here trying to gain as much knowledge and understanding as to how the Western Cape Provincial Government actually runs their government, and that I can extract and draw as many best practices from here so that we can then deploy all of that to the rest of the country. Thank you for having me.
Lovely. All right, last but not least, myself. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Kuku Ngube. I can almost proudly say I'm the fourth serving female president of this organization, and also the 14th president in this organization. So I think ABASA has well invested in me. What I found wonderful about this organization, and just looking at the journey I've walked in my career, is that I was at a firm, Deloitte, where I got to work almost very first-hand / second-hand with Mamfuti herself. So really to almost, when they say, "Wenyanya from Litsweleng," to really suckle from her directly that knowledge, that expertise, witnessing her day-to-day challenges. So I was equally excited. We were also classmates a few years ago as well, doing a master's together. And I guess aside from that, look, I'm a sister. I have 3 sisters at home, brought up by 2 parents, but predominantly my mother. And I think just through watching my mother, my grandmother, I also learned a lot of examples around the strength of women. And the one lady actually made the comment around the failure of women to be resilient. And it actually was a comment that hit hard for me because I've observed a number of women who have really driven and have actually really far succumbed or far surpassed what anyone would expect. Just a few days ago, we were discussing or we were celebrating Ubab Jeff van Rooyen, our founding president. And then when you listen to his story, he was brought up by a grandmother who actually wanted the best for him, gave whatever she could towards him. So many women, really in whatever big or small way, have actually contributed favorably, first in my own life, but certainly I think in the lives of many of us in this room. So a chartered accountant by qualification, helped establish actually what we today call Deloitte Africa. So it was exciting actually celebrating with Lwazi a few weeks ago. Well, actually it's probably been a month ago. So just the journey that the firm itself has taken. And through that, I think my career has enabled me to also just really go and yearn and seek for the knowledge of this continent, understanding of the continent. It hit hard for me quite a lot when I was working across the continent in setting up the practice at how big the disparities are and the so-called notion that, no, but when you women get to this point, you want to now get married, and that's why we don't have partnerships with women, and yet senior managers have got very strong, capable females in the pipeline. So that's always just been an aspect and narrative that's driven me. That's why also just drove me to doing the studies that I did. And yeah, I can also just successfully say that I set up a business which today my husband runs, but I can honestly say it's perhaps from the great foundation and I guess the pillow talk strategic thinking he gets from his wife every so often. So women is at the heart of me. I think I had the honor and I'd almost say the privilege for my predecessor president, Mam Tanti. Actually, I used to call her Mam Tanti, Tantaswa, agreeing for me to actually set up this particular committee, almost 10 years ago. And with the view that we really needed to have a strong presence of how we are ensuring that women within the ABASA rhetoric are actually flagged equally and as strongly as what we need to, because really the journey is still quite far in terms of where we need to go.
I love that. I love that. And I think, I'm glad I let them, share their own bios, because I don't think I would have done it justice. But touching on the topic on the role of women leaders in raising generation of excellence for future sustainability. I mean, the workforce, so there's some statistics that show that, in 2025, 75% of our workforce will comprise of millennials as well as Generation Z.
Indeed.
So my question for you guys, ABASA exists to champion black accountants in South Africa. How do we then balance that transformation, not only from a race perspective, but an intergenerational perspective?
Can I go?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So I'm going to start with something a bit anecdotal and about myself. Those who know me well know that the one role and responsibility I hold in my life and most seriously is that being over Mamkul. Hashtag Mamkul on Facebook. And why I really respect that role is because underneath those titles, the persons who have the privilege of calling me that are two little girls. One is 6 years old, one is 2 years old, 4:45 actually by her age range. But what I really hold dear about that responsibility is that, I don't have children of my own, but I know how children watch every little move that you make. And therefore, everything I am doing as Umamkhulu wabo is either a favorable move or a negative move. Everything that I'm saying, they are observing. What is it about being a woman? What is it about being a mother? What is it about being a wife and being a career woman that they are getting to see through me on a day-to-day basis? And in turn, it's also meant that I must be intentional about how I take the responsibility of the kind of decisions that I make for myself, relative to my family, and I think also more importantly, even with regards to them, all right? So they're kind of like quasi-beneficiaries because I don't have kids. Well, they just benefit from all the financial, Old Mutual, financial decisions that I've made for them, But for me, it is then just saying, well, look, let's lay a foundation, because the one thing I don't want is that in sort of 12 years' time, call it 18 years' time, when they come out and go into varsity, they must be facing the exact same issues I faced.
Yeah.
I mean, then what is that? Then we actually haven't moved our society, we haven't moved our world. If at that point they're still also struggling the way I did for the kind of things that I struggled for, then how did I actually enable that, as opposed to trying to find a way to try and help regress it? So I do just believe that when you're going to try and address excellence and uphold it, you have to be true to what actually matters most to you, what grounds you, and how do you ensure that you live by it on a day-to-day basis, that you aren't being selective of how you apply it, because you don't have the opportunity to switch it on and switch it off. You have to, you are kind of like in front of camera all the time. Yeah.
I thought, let me also tackle this. So she talked about something being very intentional, right? And it's quite important that we understand the definition of that intentional. And for us to be able to also understand the definition of excellence. And when it comes to intergenerational conversation, we need to make certain that we define the it per generation. So what we define as excellence might not be what the generations which are coming would define as excellence. And I think a very simple example that's been making its way around because of the pandemic is about this balanced life and how we see a balanced life versus how the millennials and generation, what's it, XYZ? Z generation. XYZ. So how they see it, right? Yes. And I think it's an important conversation to have. And that's where the deliberate part comes in. We need to make certain that we open our doors for those conversations.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that they feel heard and that they have a platform to be able to communicate to us what they would want. Imagine us also, I mean, even with my kids, I try to figure out what do they want. And I'm a practical person, so I'll be like, okay, so let me explain it to you. This is what we're really going to do. And their mind probably processes it completely different. And my question to you is, what do you want? Why are you crying? And I'm sure what they're hearing is completely different to what mommy is saying. And it's, for me, every day it's a reminder that they are so different to the way we are. And I start questioning, remember they come as a blank canvas. But my 2-year-old turning 3, mine is 5 to 3 next month. So she can navigate my cell phone and she can navigate things, and the way she communicates, like there are times where she's feeling extreme sadness and she'll tell me, Mom, I am so sad. And I would say, but you're only 2 years old. How are you so in touch with your sadness and your feelings? So it's that, to be able to open that conversation so that we can all understand what are they feeling. And we are sitting in positions of leadership now. So it is for us to be able to say, right, work with them to determine what they would want in the future. And I strongly believe that future is not 10 years, it's not 15 years, it is in the next 2 to 5 years.
Sure.
We need to make space at that table for those
Right
youngsters
now.
to come through.
Wow, that's so powerful.
Just to add, I must acknowledge, otherwise I'll be in trouble, that today I brought my daughter. Who is 20 years old. So before I stood up, she says, Mommy, are you not scared to speak in front of people? I guess from my side, it's also an opportunity to, did I switch this on?
I think you may have.
I did. I thought I'm geared up for
Okay, can we just get the roaming mic for now? Oh, are we on? Okay.
Is it on? Oh.
Okay.
I think let's first discuss. This is
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's back on. Okay.
I think let's just define excellence.
Yeah.
What is excellence? And I guess for me personally, excellence is doing something but doing it better than the person who has done it before. Or doing it better than your predecessor, right? But excellence needs to be defined around the fact that it's something that you do with passion. If you don't do it with passion, don't do it. So having worked or having to lead a team where you've got the generation Y or whatever the case is. No, there's the Z. There's the Gen Z.
Yeah.
But you obviously have been able to lead, teams at different levels. One thing that is fundamental that I always implement in my leadership role is that there is one thing that is fundamental for all of us. And first thing is our values, ethics. If those things are not put onto autopilot, then I think we will be able to, lead teams and understand what the Generation Z actually requires. We've just done a study, and I've launched it with University of Johannesburg on the Generation Z. And we did that in partnership with PwC. Generation Z is, they're a different generation. I mean, I sit with my daughter, I can tell you now, we don't finish a conversation because I'm thinking, you should be thinking the way I'm thinking, but their mindset is actually different, and the way they process information and process data, it's different from us, right?
Yeah.
But I think what is important for us is, how do we define excellence for the younger generation that's coming up, understanding how they operate, while remembering that the values of respect within an organization, they need to be part and parcel of what we do. We cannot say we have
Yeah.
Generation Z and forget the fact that they still need to learn from the older generation that
baby
is already
boomers,
in the in the organization. So I think for me, fundamentally, we need to not lose our values. We need to remember that the ethical behavior is very important, as you said. How we present ourselves and what we do, there has to be ethics guiding us in terms of the decisions that we take. So for me, excellence is allowing people space to really do what they need to do while you're guiding, but allow them to be who they are and bring out the excellence in them. While we are teaching them, while they are learning, we also need to be able to have an open mind to say, we've got a younger generation that's coming in. How do we allow them to be themselves?
Yeah.
While remembering that all of us have got values. And I think the value of respect for me within an organization, it goes a long way. Because then you are able to navigate between the older generation and the younger generation while they're learning from each other, ensuring that the basis of us moving in this organization is the basis of respect. Because if there is respect, we are able to learn from one another.
I love that, and I think someone was clapping. You see, that's already Gen Z. It's like, yes. But I think it just reminds me to say, I just lost my trail of thought, but I'm a leader, I'm a young leader right now, and I've also got a mix of different people. And I think as, you can be a leader in any position, like Lorika spoke earlier on, and it's about learning to lead, from the top, learning up to manage up, down, sideways, all around, because it goes back to navigating around those intergenerational individuals. Because I did some research around Gen Zs, they're more purpose-driven.
Yes.
Millennials are also purpose-driven, but like life-work balance is very important to them. Baby boomers, it's about you're laughing. I think she just exposed herself. But I think baby boomers take pride in the knowledge that they've acquired over the years, and they want to mentor. But you need to talk to baby boomers in a certain manner. You don't come there challenging status quo at the get-go. Gen X is also around family values of importance to them. So speaking to what I'm really passionate about bridging that gap between graduates, between middle management, between senior to executive, knowing that we are raising future leaders. I mean, we've touched on it, but how do we navigate something as simple as communication? I just want to break it down, because these are some of the issues that we have currently. In terms of learning how to speak, learning how to know this is how Osposha wants to be addressed, right? Because Gen Zs are I have a 7-year-old, I don't even know what she is, my 2000, okay? But they have certain ways of how they also want to be heard. So how do we then ensure, to your point, Sangeeta, that we are making space already for our children, not only now, but for future generations? How do we do that in terms of the way we communicate? And I think you've touched on values, etc., but...
For me, when you ask this question, it's very interesting, because during the day, we were on the 3rd floor, and I represent SAPRO, and we have got a program, we've got DIPS, we call it Diversity, Inclusion, Belonging Strategy, that we have developed. And we focus on 3 pillars: marginalized group, which include women as well, and we are talking about generational people that are older than what we are currently looking at, all the generations that you can think of, from Gen Z to baby boomers and all that. But one thing that was interesting was around, and I was talking to this guy, he's around 25, and then I said to him, he says, "Oh, you're working for SAPRO?" I said, "Yes, I am." And then I says, "Oh, a lot of people want to actually work for SAPRO." And I said, oh, cool. And then he looked at me, I said, "Yes, cool." Because I'm using the language that I'm using. And then I said, and then he looked at me, I said, Yeah, because I need to talk your language so that you understand what I'm talking about, but I also want to understand your psyche. And that guy actually stayed with me for an hour because I want to understand what is it that you are looking for. And one thing that I really don't understand is how can somebody leave a permanent job and come and join a fixed-term contract, because we've got different types of contract. We don't have just the traditional fixed-term and traditional perm. We have got the flexi-perm, where somebody can actually work for 9 months over 12, and then they can take their 3 months and do whatever they want, but they still earn the salary for the entire year. Because we understand that the Gen Z, they love a work-life balance. The Gen Z, they are technological savvy. The Gen Z, they actually, they want to be paid well because their image is everything to them.
Oh, that's
and the
true.
Gen Z.
I feel like you're talking about me, but I'm a millennial.
And the Gen Z, mental health is critical, and the Gen Z, they want to work anywhere, anytime, and radical flexibility is one of our values. It doesn't matter whether you're in your PJs or whatever, because we are outcome-based. So that is what the Gen Z are actually looking for. And and as I was talking to him, he says, "Oh, goodness me, you actually talking our language?" I said, "Yes, of course, because you know what? I just want to drop now. Can I leave you?" And then he looked at me. So it is about talking their language. It's about understanding what they need, and the Gen Z, they don't want to be micromanaged.
Yes.
That is just one thing about the Gen Z. They don't want to be micromanaged. They are more, they actually turned around everything that we thought coming to an office every day, watching how many hours you spend doing X, Y, and Z is critical. For them, it's not that. Because I also work for one of the big fours, and they couldn't understand. I'm done with my audit. I'm done with this. Why should I stick around? And the managers couldn't understand. And I said, you need to understand the psyche. But because I'm a qualified industrial psychologist, and for me to understand what the other person is thinking is critical for me, and hence I spend a lot of time talking to them, understanding what they need. And I said, are you measuring how long a person has spent on their desk because they can sit and do absolutely nothing? Or are you really outcome-based to say, have you delivered what you promised to deliver?
Yes.
If we can talk the language of outcome-based, then we will tap into what they need, and they will deliver the discretionary effort that you'll get from a Gen Z. It is significant, and that is what they are looking for. And I think these are the things that now they are challenging us, and which is great. We want to be challenged, because one thing that COVID has taught us is we need to be open-minded to diversity of thinking and experiences, because what we knew or worked previously may not be relevant today. And the Gen Z has actually proven that to us.
I love that. And I don't know, Sagita, do you look eager to
I was
want to
like,
add?
she's given us the how-to, and she's given us the solution.
Exactly.
Up and go.
That is so true. And I think you've actually covered the Great Resignation, because that was going to be my next question around how do we navigate around that, because the Gen Z, as you've said, you've kept it the Gen Z so very well in terms of, millennials and Gen Zs are known to be hoppers. Baby boomers, Gen X, more loyal, they want to stay the long term, but things have changed. So I think you've touched and you've covered in terms of like the Great Resignation, and how does an organization then navigate around that to retain the Gen Z and as well as the millennials. I'm going to now, sorry.
Just sorry to interject there. Something that has been of concern to me, though, when we talk around how are we moving ahead, moving forward, and aligning with who's coming through the pipeline. You know, the Gen Zs, as we've been using as an example, is I think of our profession being the accountancy profession, and I'm trying to constantly ask myself, how come we are seeing such limited SAPRO examples in the profession? You know, the firms are still practicing a lot of the call it traditional means in terms of approaches when it comes to how they are, call it the requirements from a work perspective, the expectations. And I think often I question whether we are understanding that it's not actually about what we're saying, but actually what we're doing, which is 70% of communication.
Yeah.
That is then in turn either aligning with or us deterring people out of the profession. And one of the things I just keep thinking about when you then talk about the aspect of, people want that flexibility, is when you think of the, call it accountancy student of today, they are not competing, or when they're standing and looking at their options, they're not saying, okay, is it law, is it medicine, is it accounting? They are saying, am I going to go the IT route because I can be a digital nomad, work from anywhere in the world, do whatever I want to do? That's the kind of individual that you're now actually competing with. And in turn, have we, even post-COVID, changed our approaches to then actually say, well, we had an opportunity perhaps to even just call it re-gear, reset, and in turn come out of it different type of industry or market than what we were had been sort of 2-3 years prior.
I love that.
And it's an important thought, no? Because if you look at the traditional auditing environment, it's very practically driven, very intensive in terms of the interactions, the communications. I need you next to me. I need to meet you to have the conversation. If I'm going to have a discussion with you around how I can support you, I need to be able to sit with you across the table and to be able to do that. And I think it's also making certain that we're aware of the space that we are filling right now. And we potentially might be hurting ourselves for not having been aware. So there's a necessity for us to accept the change with us first before we start even implementing an understanding of how we're going to work with the kids of today. So I think it's going to have to be a deliberate and intentional internal reflection as to am I going to allow this space? And once you open that door, you must also be comfortable with that there could be possibilities that you probably won't think of yourself, but that the Gen Z would actually bring those possibilities to the table.
Which is so, and I think it provides that richness across collaborative efforts across those generations to say, how do we then all just learn from one another?
Interesting enough, sorry. I think you've read a report on Gen Z. I
haven't. They actually said they will send it to me. It was just a communication, and I listened with a different ear. So I have an interest of what do you think?
I think what's interesting, just to add, if you allow me to, and I think it also goes back to communication, but also being able to listen to the younger generation. Our report actually basically says, one of the outcomes is that they want to sit on the board. They don't want us, the older generation, to sit on the board and make decisions. And the minute you open up that opportunity for them, I'm telling you, from a digital perspective, these kids are smart. These children are smart. Because remember, information for them is just on they've got information right on the tip of their hands. So one of the requests is that they want to be given a table within the board to be able to drive strategy and support the organization and make decisions. So I think it also goes back to us as to how do we then adapt ourselves and allow them to have a seat on the table. And it's amazing that those organizations that open up that opportunity, there's a turnaround in terms of how we do things. We do things the way we've been taught. But with the Generation Z, they come with fresh ideas. They come with solutions that we never could have thought of.
And they challenge the status quo.
And they challenge the status quo. So I think it's also important for us to be open-minded, to accept their inputs, but also to accept some of their criticism. And let me tell you, they say it as it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, how you want to sugarcoat it. They would say it as it is. It's quite interesting that even in the report, these kids are something else. So I think it's important, honestly, as leaders, to be able to be adaptable, to be able to be open to feedback, but give them that opportunity. Sit with them. Allow them to tell us whether the strategy is making sense or not. Because let me tell you, they always come up with solutions.
Brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And since there's so many Gen Zs in the audience, I think I would love to get their, thinking around the topic at hand. So if I can ask for the roaming mic, is there anyone that has any questions? Oh, there's a hand right there at the back.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and everything that everyone on the panel has said has been very insightful. And one of the things that I just want to point out is that the conversation has been about how we look at the Gen Z and how is it that we perceive them, of what their opinion is about, how is their thinking. But the question is, how do we then start the conversation with the older generation? How do we start communicating with them so that they can understand where we are coming from? I'm going to make a practical example because I want things to be automated, right? But then I need to start a conversation in a way that is not going to disregard everything that you know, because what else do I know? I know automation. I don't know debit and credits and all the T thingies, So everything that I've learned is it has always been automated. So then how do I start a conversation to say that I understand and appreciate your wisdom and I want to learn from you, but then there is this automation that we can put in place now to change the strategy of whatever reason. How can I start that conversation without stepping on someone's shoes?
And that's such a powerful question because with that automation, people already assume my job is at stake, right? So there's that resistance towards, I actually don't want to entertain that. So yeah, anyone on the panel who wants to answer?
I'll take that. I'll start. I think empathy becomes critical in how you're going to approach. And the manner of approach for me is also quite critical. For somebody to be able to understand where you're coming from, I think the objective needs to be quite clear. To say why do we need to basically have this conversation? And I think if you put empathy and I'm going to go back to what I said, level of respect. It's how you approach the conversation, but it's also how you address it. And I always say, we can say the same thing, but it's how you position it. And remember, we are very sensitive now. We've been taught how to do these things the telecom way in those olden days, but the generations that when it comes, that you guys want to look at technology, and technology is not always easy, but change is also not easy. As you rightfully said, my job might be on the line if we're going to automate everything else because I might not be able to adapt quickly to technology. So from my point of view, I think it's how you approach the conversation. And the rest is history. I think the last panel said you need to be firm enough and brave enough and say what you actually require, but it's about how you say it. How you approach it.
I also think if we are focused on the topic and not the individual in what you're addressing. So if you're saying, I want to propose automation, it is going to help us, our business, our company, etc., then we are talking about that aspect. Then I'm actually open. Okay, first of all, I don't consider myself old. So when they talk ABASA past presidents and they talk stalwarts, please don't put me in the stalwart category. I don't even dress like a stalwart. No offense, Momfoot. However, what I have found though is that, in our business, in the company I'm working, you've got people who have been working longer than I've been alive. So inherently, I'm conscious that I'm talking to a person who I need to be respectful. So, exactly as Umar was saying, be respectful and the likes. But also people are very open to saying, okay, what is this going to be mutually beneficial? So just already from that perspective, people are open to ideas, thoughts, different perspectives. If you're going to challenge, how do you, again, respectfully challenge? You say, okay, think of it this way. Have you considered this other alternative? So then at the end of the day, we get a win-win outcome. And it's not then about, I'm better or I've got, something else that you have never thought around. It's actually something that's going to benefit us all at the end of the day.
Can I answer your question differently? And I remember years ago when I went to university. In our culture, we've got aunts, uncle. That's what we call them. And then when you go to university, lectures are being called by their names. It was a culture shock for me personally because I was, expecting to be calling somebody else an uncle and aunt, and I said, okay. But one thing that actually was sort of like an eye-opener for me was more on how I was raised by my dad and my mom. So just a little bit of a story to answer your question, but also some of the things are more how we have been socialized, how we have been raised, how we see things, and you sort of like, you want to be respectful all the time, which is great, and then it starts to undermine the authenticity of what you want to bring across. And you want to massage the message in such a way that I'm sort of like trying to understand what is it that you're trying to do. My dad is firstborn. In our culture, that the firstborn inherit the responsibility of their parents and siblings of 10. And when he married my mom, and my late brother was child number 11, I was child number 12, my little brother was child number 30, because now he has to raise everybody, including us. But what was critical in his teaching, which I am seeing it now, and I like that question of saying, when you leave, who is your successor? My dad, in our culture, the uncle, the aunts, they must be around the table when big discussions get made. But now my dad will say, I want my kids. Where are they? No, the kids mustn't be here because we're taking my dad will say, they must be on the table. I started sitting on the table at the age of 10, as far as I remember, from my family. And my dad will go one by one to say, Sarah, what do you think about this? And then I'll say, no. Speak up. I want to understand, what are you saying? And that started to build confidence at an early age, where he says, respect is critical, but respect does not equate you should keep quiet when you see things that are not going the way that you think.
No, exactly. Absolutely. Exactly.
That was just a powerful, and the other thing, patriarchy is critical, but my dad, we didn't use those words then. I said, he is a disruptor of note, because he would say, when you talk to me, you look me in the eye, because I want to understand what you feel, what you think, and what is in your mind. And that was just so powerful. But the third thing that he also taught me, inclusivity, that it wasn't the table only for men to make the key decisions around the table, but even the woman, the kids in the house were critically important to be part of those critical decisions, and that is what the Gen Z are looking for.
Wow.
And it is something that I have just learned from my dad.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think it starts at home, right? The responsibility honestly starts at home. So I'm going to take 2 more questions because I'm cognizant of time. And then during the networking session afterwards, you can grab any one of the panelists. But just anyone who has 2 more questions before they give their closing remarks in 30 seconds. No questions? No questions. Okay. So, firstly, ladies, I've learned so much as a millennial, and I realized that I have a lot of commonalities with Gen Zs. So there's a lot of things that I'm like, okay, I'm not that far off from Gen Zs. But thank you so much. What an enriching conversation. It is much needed, especially in these times that we live in. I just want to get your closing remarks in 30 seconds around the topic that we've been discussing. My English data bundles are also depleted. I can seriously hear that they're failing me. I need to go fetch that English from Pakistan girls. But yeah, in closing, like your closing remarks.
I think the topic really included sustainability, and I don't think we've made justice to sustainability. Because for me, sustainability would mean the decisions that we're going to take, how are they going to be sustainable for the future generation? So I think it's a good topic. We could have had more time, but what is key and critical is that we are working in an environment where you get all sorts of people from different religions, different backgrounds, and we are, we're working around the globe. You also get people from other cultures as well, but what is key and critical as a leader is that you need to be adaptable. And you need to be able to accept people for who they are. And let's not try and change people to become how we expect them to be, but let's accept each other the way we are and embrace our differences. And that difference for me would really make organizations to be where they are. And please read the Generation Z report. It's on our website.
We shall indeed.
Thank you.
My closing remark is going to be very simple. I'm going to leave you with a question that I don't want an answer from anyone, but I want you to think about it. And it relates to excellence. What excellence is. Excellence is the ability to dream big. But how big would you dream if you knew that you wouldn't fail? That is the question that I just want to leave it with everybody, and that will be my closing remark. How big would you dream if you knew you couldn't fail?
Wow.
Indeed.
So my closing remark is very closely related to the role part. And I think it's going to be important that each one of us define the role that we're going to play in this transition that we foresee. And we're going to see that this disruption is continuous. It's not going to be a disruption that we're going to ultimately reach a destination. It's going to be continuous. It's going to come in new shapes and new forms. And we need to determine what our role is going to be. And this is going to entail a continuous check-in with yourself as to how you're going to intentionally show up as a leader and to actually provide the platform as well as craft the change that is going to be constant into the future.
Wow.
Sure. So mine is just a reflection on our theme as a whole. So we're talking about driving leadership excellence as the overall theme for the conference. We talk about upholding excellence in terms of pretty much some of the themes for this evening. For me, excellence starts with the little things, doing those little things extraordinarily.
Wow.
And perhaps at this point, I might end up never getting a panel opportunity. So, Madam Press, happy to be red carded here. But excellence, when you look at the little things, it means being able to respect time. Because if we cannot be respecting time, how do we expect to be the same persons who are going to run this country, who are going to run parastatals, right? Yet we cannot even do some of the simple things, right? So excellence for me starts in doing the little things. That is why when I talk about the youngsters who are looking at you, they're looking at you even in those little things. Right. I was looking at some of the research doing some research on ESCOM. ESCOM celebrates 100 years next year. They've had 30 CEOs, and not one has been a woman.
True. That's so true.
How many female presidents has this country had? And yet we sit with the problems that we sit with, and an opportunity where we as women should be now showing the example. We cannot even do some of the little things right.
Wow. I have absolutely nothing to add after that. But thank you so much, everyone. It's been an awesome evening. I'm sure you can attest to the fact that you definitely leave more richer and also definitely leave with the thinking of what can I do in my respective space to show up a little better in the little that I do in my everyday life. And how do I come and become audacious and bold and back ourselves? And with that said, I just want to say thank you very much, and I'm going to hand over to Gab.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the panel. Thank you to the facilitator, Uludile. We've come to the end of the evening, but before we dash off and go network, we need to announce that winner of those unit trusts, and we need to observe protocol and have our Madam President, Ulinda Maqoma, do the vote of thanks. The person who's going to be announcing the winner of the 15,000 Rand unit trust is going to be Nazir Kada, who is the group head of tax for Old Mutual Limited. Is Nazir here? Tima. Oh, Tima is now going to be doing the draw. You can come up, Tima. You can come do it here. So earlier on, we asked you guys to fill in your details in little pamphlets. So we're going to, is Emma here? Numisa is here. You can come audit us to make sure that you're not, to make sure that all the procedures are being followed. Madam President, you can also come up.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to do it because... Must I not take it myself? Drum roll, please. Tracy Lee Lenya.
Tracy is also part of Tracy is also a part of the ABASA Western Cape branch. So your details.
Oh, you want a picture?
There's the camera.
Unit trust.
He's going around.
But he does that. He does that.
I'm gonna hand over to my Madam President to do the closing remarks.
I wasn't supposed to speak today. But I think we have such an important stakeholder that has, come to the party. Tebogo, I see you floating around there. It's been quite a journey, but it's always so good to see organizations like Old Mutual coming to ABASA, and especially with women. Missed the opportunity at the conference, but said we can't miss this opportunity. So I firstly want to thank our headline sponsor for tonight, Old Mutual, for the support. I then want to recognize my Madam President, Mamfutim Tauba, who is in the room. It's always such a blessing, in my view, and we talk about intergenerational alignment and conversations, and to have our past presidents in the room, and to have the people that have paved the way for us in the room is always so important. So thank you, Ma'am. I know you flew in especially for this, and to make sure you could see us through the next few days. Thank you very much. And to my Madam President, I echo the words, there's no red card. We must be disciplined. We must keep time. We must do the little things so that we are given the bigger things. So we are aligned, my President. To the speakers, both from Old Mutual and from the ABASA fireside chat, ladies, to whom much is given, much is required. And it's always amazing that when we call on you to speak and impart knowledge on our members and young people, you never say no, you know. So thank you very much. And never take lightly what you're doing on these platforms. There are people listening, even if they're not in the room, but these stay. You know, Gen Zs will tell you, it's on the internet now, it's not going anywhere. And it's therefore very important that what we do say we mean, because we will be held accountable for those things. So when we say we're using our spaces of influence to actually raise this next generation and be sustainable, let's do that and mean it. So I know you're all very hungry. I don't know why they didn't feed you when you came, but the good news is that there is food and drinks when you go out. So please do network and enjoy yourselves. And thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as well. Thank you. Good night.